He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
Happy Veterans Day. This is The Alex Marlow Show. I'm the editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, and I'm very happy to be with you today. I hope you all had a great weekend. Reminder, freedom is never free, so we do thank our veterans. We only have the best veterans, okay? Believe me, believe me. Truly grateful for all the contributions that so many of you in the audience. I heard from a lot of you over the weekend. I'll try to read some of those towards the end of the show. Aloha at alexmarlow.com if you want to be a part of the broadcast or just give me some feedback, positive or negative. We're seeing some really great numbers, so thank you, all of you who are watching the show, subscribing, telling 10,000 friends and family members about us. Really taking off on Rumble, of all places, which is very cool, seeing, I think, north of 30,000 views in each of the last two shows, which exceeds my expectations, which is terrific. But we want to get this thing as big as possible. So iTunes, or I guess they call it Apple Podcast now, Spotify, so you don't miss an episode, get it right in your feed, YouTube, and it is on Rumble, of course. All great ways to subscribe and help the show grow. Leave a comment, give me some feedback. All that's terrific. If you're interested in other things that I'm up to, I was on Laura Ingram's show on Friday. I don't get on primetime Fox too often until recently. I've been on Laura's show quite a bit, and I get to announce the big winners of the presidential election, or I guess the whole election. And my number one winner was the dogs and the cats, because they were eating the dogs and they were eating the cats, and now they're not. So you can hear my full explanation of why I thought Joe Biden was also one of the winners, even though he will no longer be president in 70 days. All that, it's fun stuff, and you can catch that at Breitbart.com. Yeah, I had an interesting weekend because I had some parties to go to, which I don't tend to keep a big social calendar, and I did have one, and it was the couple events. And I will, when you get there, you would realize how they would be really funeral processions had the election not gone as well as they had. And I went to a gala for PragerU, which is one of my favorite groups in the world. They work closely with us at Breitbart. I'm a massive Dennis Prager fan, as everyone who has been with me for any amount of time knows. My colleague on Salem now, after so many years of him being a part of my life in other ways. And it was an incredible night, and Adam Carolla was the headliner, who's super hilarious. I've been listening to him for, it's got to be 25 years on the radio or on podcasts, et cetera. And I sat next to a guy named Stephen Marmer, who's a doctor, an MD psychiatrist from UCLA. And I said to him, Dr. Marmer, what do you tell your left-wing friends who are all bummed out now after the election? And he had a great recommendation. He said, recommend that they focus on their personal lives and everything will be okay. And I thought that was so great, because my first book, Breaking the News, that's really how I concluded it, because the book came out right after Trump had lost the 2020 election. And I knew I would be speaking to an audience that was sort of dismayed with what was going on, lost, rudderless. And it's just a great thing to think about, that focus on the things in your life you can control. And that stuff in your family, in yourself as an individual, your personal life, in your community, just getting involved by any means. And I think that's a really nice message. If any of you are, let's say, finding yourself in social settings these days where it's uncomfortable because the good guys won this time around. So I thought that was great from a UCLA professor, Dr. Stephen Marmer. I thought that was pretty cool. But great stuff going on. Breitbart killed it last week. Over the last 30 days on Facebook, the most consequential presidential campaign in history, Breitbart News beat CNN, Washington Post, MSNBC, The Hill, Axios, and Politico combined. Wow. Don't tell Zuckerberg. No one send this episode to Zuckerberg. Send it anywhere else. But we appreciate that, all of you who support us and to share our content and keep us the biggest and the strongest there is in new media. It means a lot, and it vindicates everything that I'm doing, makes me feel very good. And you're all a big part of it, because we want to have the most cutting edge, the most accurate information for all of you. And I think we generally live up to that, because there's a lot of fake news out there, and you need us. And there's a lot of fake news. In particular, I was reading even from a friend of mine was tweeting some real fake news about what's going on with the Republican leadership race in the Senate. And I think we'll start there today. There's three main candidates who have emerged. There's John Cornyn of Texas. There is John Thune of South Dakota. and Rick Scott of Florida. And those are the three guys who are probably going to be, one of those three is going to be the Senate Majority Leader. You got to get 27 Republican votes to get that seat, get that position. And Cornyn and Thune are both establishment guys. Rick Scott is not. I don't know if Rick Scott is the most pure Republican in the Congress, but he certainly votes like one of the best, one of the absolute best. Very communicative with us, with Breitbart. I've interviewed him, I think, only once, and it's out there somewhere, Breitbart.com. It's terrific. And he's a very bright guy who knows how to get stuff done. He's the obvious pick of the group. It's not even close. And those of you who are considering calling your senators, calling their offices, today would be the day to do it, because it looks like it's going to get voted on in a secret ballot on Wednesday. And one place where I'm optimistic is that Cornyn and Thune are both vying for different wings of the establishment. Cornyn is a mess. He's a mess. He's got bad positions on immigration and guns. He's had so many bad takes over the years and absolutely should not be in this role. He's in 2026. He's up for re-election. So this actually gives me some hope if somehow he does get through, because he'll be susceptible to pressure. He'll be susceptible to pressure because he could get primaried from his right flank. So perhaps not the end of the world if he gets it for that reason, because it'll just make the voices like ours in the America First wing of the Republican Party, it'll make us very relevant because we can hold him accountable, hold his feet to the fire. But he's going to split a lot of the establishment vote with John Thune, who I'm told has the most votes right now, but not necessarily a path to get to the 27 necessary unless some sort of compromise is done with Cornyn. But Thune is just a McConnell guy. That's the McConnell choice, and a guy who we were all very enthusiastic about when he got into the Senate. I don't know, what was it? It's got to be like 3 terms ago or so. And it just turned out to be a establishment guy and not someone that my audience would want in that role. But I'm always optimistic this day and age that everyone's seeing the writing on the wall, that the old guard Republican politics is in massive retreat, and America is realigned around Donald Trump's America First values. Those values are first and foremost a secure border, redoing these trade deals, not being in a million foreign wars, et cetera, tapping America's energy sector. I'm optimistic we'd be able to get him on board with that sort of an agenda at this point if he did get through. So I don't want to be overly pessimistic unless I really am seeing something bad. But this would be a big shame if we don't get a great guy in there at the Senate. And of the three that are out there, Rick Scott's the obvious choice. So fingers crossed that's how it works out. But I'll keep you posted every day in the show what we're hearing. And then there should be that secret ballot on Wednesday, where you could see someone emerge who maybe is a compromise candidate who does better. Your mind always goes to someone like a Tom Cotton, who I think has a lot of the respect of both wings of the Republican Party and is obviously very capable and could work well with both flanks. So someone like that, you never know if he's even interested. But there's some fake news out there, like Katie Britt, for example, siding with the establishment, is being reported in MAGA media or MAGA media, whatever it is. I was told that's not necessarily the case. So I'm hopeful that she'll end up voting with the more Donald Trump aligned candidate, whoever that may be. But the one idea that I saw that was really terrific, that it came from I saw it first from my friend Charlie Kirk, and I know Glenn Beck's on board with this, and it sounds like Senator Mike Lee's on board with this, but actually restoring this concept of the president of the Senate, which is in the Constitution, that role is the vice president's role. And there really isn't a lot of authority to set a legislative agenda per se, but it is a leadership role where the vice president could lead the party's efforts in the Senate. I think Vance, who was a senator, wildly popular, everyone loves him right now on the right. Everyone sees the asset he's been to Donald Trump's ticket. Everyone sees him now as the front runner for a 2028 nomination, even though that could be short-lived. You never know how that's going to go. But it feels like this idea of kind of giving him the leadership role, that would make it a much more obvious way for him to liaison with the executive branch. There's always a thought you don't want the executive branch to get too powerful, that you would like for there to be 3 powerful, equally powerful branch of the government. But realistically, if the Senate which is run by Republicans, is grinding down Donald Trump's version of America and his agenda because they've got their establishment grievances, then we got to find another method. And maybe this is it. So I'm going to keep exploring that. And as those details come out, I'm going to bring that to your attention because that's something that I'm way in on, because the vice president doesn't really have a job. It's waiting for the president to die, which is, what kind of a job is that? And I think that this is something where Vance could get some more profile. He could get some more power. I think get some more influence. And I just really dig that. And I don't know who would, if there's a heavy push for that, who'd get in the way? Who'd get in the way? If it's in the Constitution, it's right there. So more on that to come, but I really like the idea. I'm encouraged by it. We're getting some sense of what Donald Trump's team is going to take place as the transition takes hold. I am thrilled to note that Tom Homan is going to be the border czar. Tom Homan is another person who has decades of experience, has been he's the former ICE director. He has been very communicative with Breitbart. I've interviewed him many times. He shows up Breitbart all the time. He's got our audience in mind. He is trying to secure the border in a pure sense of the word. This is a guy who's earned the trust not of some sort of kumbaya unity coalition. No, this is a guy that the base likes, me included. He is a no-nonsense guy. He is not a showboat. He is not flashy. This is the guy you want standing there at the border saying, go back where you came from. That's what he wants, and that's what he's going to do. And he knows how Washington works. He's well qualified. I mean, this is just the type of stuff that you just can't help but want to swing a towel over your head. This is the good stuff. This is where we're going, and it's a good place to start. Other news: Elise Stefanik from the Congress is going to be our ambassador to the UN. Great role for her. She's someone who I think originally started out with more establishment leanings, is very ambitious, and due to that ambition, I think has increasingly seen the light of the MAGA movement. Another person who is very communicative with us at Breitbart and works closely with us, breaks exclusives with us, which I always think of as a good sign. It's not just self-aggrandizing. I really do see Breitbart in genuine sense as the beating heart of the conservative grassroots and by far the biggest conservative grassroots news outlet. So if you're coming to us, it shows you're at a minimum tuned in to what's happening. So she'd be UN ambassador. UN ambassador is a pretty meaningless role, but there's one thing that is very important about it is you're standing up to the bad guys. That is the role. There's a tricky thing that goes on because the UN is tricky and they try to pull stuff over on you. And the main role is to get up in front of nations that are often hostile to the United States and to our allies around the world and to say, no more, this is where we stand, and everyone else can take a hike because we're the 800-pound gorilla in the world. And I think she'd be great at that because that's what she's done for Donald Trump and for her allies as a congresswoman. So I think it's a great role for her. It'll up her profile in a way that I think is appropriate for her career arc. And I think that sounds great. The other thing that I love about this, because the America First wing of the conservative movement is divided on the topic of Israel these days. Trump has broadened his coalition to a lot of people who are not necessarily knee-jerk Zionists, but I am a Zionist, and I am someone who's deeply pro-Israel and wants to see Israel survive and prosper. And Stefanik is absolutely pro-Israel across the board. So this is, I would think, a big win for people who would like to see someone at the UN who is a professional person who will defend our relationship with Israel and Israel's right to exist. It's that extreme. It's Israel's right to exist, which much of the world and increasingly parts of Trump's coalition, which is okay with me in some ways, does not believe in Israel's right to exist. I vehemently disagree, but this is the time to get people on the bus. So a great role, a great choice there. Good news gets even better. Stephen Miller is now going to be tapped as Trump's deputy chief of staff, a perfect hire in this realm. And I'll tell you, there's a couple of connections, and they're really connections to Salem Media as well. Stephen Miller, I became familiar with when we were both high schoolers in Los Angeles, California. This is nearly 25 years ago. And he was the most frequent guest on my favorite radio talk show, a little show you may have heard of called The Larry Elder Show. And Miller would call in and he would just take the wood to all of these woke teachers that were at Santa Monica High School, where he went to high school. And I had a lot of friends who went there, and I didn't go there per se, but I knew what was going on. And it was really a powerful, powerful thing that he would just articulately just dismantle wokeness within education. And he went on to have an amazing career, and he was reconnected with us at Breitbart News circa 2012, 2013, 2014, when he was working for Jeff Sessions, the wonderful senator who became sort of a so-so attorney general, but is a great man and was a terrific senator who really set the tone for the reset that we've had on illegal immigration, where the Republican Party establishment wanted the borders open. And Stephen Miller was his right-hand guy as Sessions led a total realignment of the Republican Party that was eventually championed by Donald Trump and Nigel Farage and others. And this was the beginning of building that huge coalition, the huge tent that Trump has built with his America First agenda. It really started in Jeff Sessions' office and Sessions working with Breitbart. And then it was Trump who came in and, of course, took the lead of it. But those were the kernels that launched what I think was philosophically Donald Trump's America. And it started with Jeff Sessions' office and Breitbart News, and it started with Stephen Miller. So, and he, of course, ascended to high ranks within the first Trump administration. But he's seen, I think, as somewhat of a toxic figure in some circles, certainly not my circles, but some circles. And so I think elevating him higher than a deputy chief of staff role probably wasn't going to happen this first time around. So I think that's a perfect spot. And he's going to be just another one. As I said before, we need killers. This guy is the ultimate killer and a dangerous for the bad guys to have him in there. So more great news there. And one other thing that I'll mention that was curious. Trump had truth bombed. That's what I refer to as Truth Social posts, that Nikki Haley and Mike Pompeo will not be a part of the administration. Now, Nikki Haley, good news. Haley's very ambitious, and she does not come. I don't think she's learned the lessons of MAGA. I don't think she's learned the lessons of America First. I don't think she gets Donald Trump at all. And I don't know her. I've never interviewed her, and I can't say that I have any connection with her at all. All I know is that the policies that she champions are really a lot closer to the Liz Cheney policies than the Donald Trump policies. And someone who clearly wants to be president very badly and will do what it takes to try to be president, I don't know why Trump would spend time elevating her, considering her version of conservatism is not aligned with his. And I don't think it's aligned with the public. And this is a point I think I heard Tucker Carlson make this first, and I think it's a terrific point, which is that her slate of issues are not popular with the American public. And that's the main thing. And that is always the fallback, because ultimately, when you get through primaries and you get done having your various civil wars that you must have, and it's time to vote, personality isn't everything. Policy is what matters. And the policies that she's championed are endless wars, growing deep state, not a strong border. Stuff like that is just not, the public doesn't like that stuff. The public likes Trump's policies. So I'm happy with that. Pompeo could be missing out. Pompeo's a bright guy, one of the brightest in all of Washington, one of the smartest guys around, very well networked with donors, very well liked. I think he was very effective as Secretary of State, terrific Secretary of State, absolutely terrific, and has a lot of background. I think could be someone who could be helpful dismantling the deep state. There's a viral clip of him going around where he does not take Trump's side on how January the 6th should have gone, which if you listen to the context of it, Pompeo's explanation makes perfect sense, but it's used to attack him amongst Trump's base. So I think there's a lot of animosity amongst Trump's base toward Pompeo. And it's something that I think I like where Trump's head is at, that he's trying to have people who are purely on board with him in that first round of hires. And I get that. Maybe a reconsideration of Pompeo down the road might be a smart move. So, but that said, he's out, and I'm here to report the news first. But it's interesting because I was just playing this clip with producer Misty right before we got on about what a lot of the public sees about Nikki Haley. They don't see what I was describing. They see someone who is a responsible adult in the room. And these are the exact people we're not supposed to be listening to. This is Charlemagne the God, radio host, super popular radio host. He has a show that broadcasts out of New York, but it's coast to coast. Let's play this clip.
Donald Trump really did pick the worst VP pick in history.
Bro, who is this guy? What's the
It's really bad, bro. Yo, if Donald Trump would have just picked Nikki Haley like a sensible goddamn Republican conservative,
he would lose everybody.
No, he would not.
He would.
Because
No, he wouldn't.
Because if you look at what was happening in the primaries, Nikki Haley was the only person making a motherfucking then. All those conservatives who didn't necessarily want to vote Trump, they was on the Nikki train. Republicans aren't even smart enough to have understand what a little bit of diversity can do, what a little bit of inclusion can do. You put Nikki Haley, who's more than qualified, former governor of South Carolina, she was in Trump's administration, you put her as the VP, that's a hard motherfucking ticket to beat.
Oh, man. That's so good. That stuff ages so poorly. This is why you don't take advice from liberals. You don't take advice from the establishment media. Charlemagne's a super interesting person. We cover him a lot at Breitbart. He's a lot of interesting takes, but that was an airball. He was on Andrew Schultz's podcast there, I think that's what it was. Andrew Schultz is a comedian who, not a right-wing guy, but pays attention. He was sort of lightly objecting to Charlemagne. Well, Charlemagne was saying that. Like, I don't know. How bad did that age? And that's the thing, is that Charlemagne doesn't know J.D. Vance, and he doesn't really know Nikki Haley. And J.D. Vance got 312 electoral votes. That is it. That's all you got to know. 312. And Nikki Haley is not someone who should ever be on a Republican ticket, ever. Mark my words on that. She should have no part of it. That's not what we're here for. We're not here to do some sort of kumbaya with the guys who were the big losers for decades on the Republican Party. And that's what Haley represents. Clear as day. That's what she represents. And she should not have a role in Trump's administration, in my opinion, period. And we'll go from there. Look, I don't know anything about her personally. She might be a great person, might be a terrible person. I don't care. What matters is that her values that she espouses are not good. And what J.D. Vance espouses is very good. And this diversity thing is way overblown in this country. It's very low rent. And you can see this because Trump gained ground with nearly every single demographic group. Nearly every single demographic group came around to Trump, even though he is a white man, and he went up against a white man last time, and he went up against a mixed race woman this time. So how do you explain that? All of you diversity fascists, people who think that diversity matters more than policy, diversity matters more than anything. All of you people who wake up every day and just think about diversity and pretty colors and sexual orientation and all that stuff, and you don't think about policy, how do you explain that? That Trump went against the only mixed race woman in the Senate and won by more, and he won by different demographic groups, almost every demographic group with a bigger margin. How is that possible? It's possible because Americans actually are more colorblind than the leftists in the media would have you believe. And that's a great thing for us. The meltdowns are continuing, by the way, and we have to enjoy these because the left is so lost, and we want them to be able to not find themselves, because it is one of these things where we're not going to get this forever. We're not going to get this beautiful thing where the left continues to pull unbelievably bad ideas. One thing that they're doing now is this sex strike, where they're going to withhold intimacy with men because Kamala lost. This is continuing. It's being called the 4B movement. I think it started out of Korea. I'll try to give you a deeper dive on what it is, assuming this continues. But, I'm all in on this. Again, it's going to be less fornication, fewer abortions. And I just think that people, torturing themselves some more because they're babies and they can't grow up and accept that sometimes you don't win a presidential race. I can live with all that. All of that is fun and enjoyable for me to witness. But I don't take my word for it. Let's hear from some of the people who are engaging in this. Here's one young woman that I think is a TikTok video. Let's play this one.
Did anyone else wake up today and delete their dating apps? Like, I'm not just talking like just removing the app. Like, I full on removed myself from Hinge, Bumble. Like, I didn't even think twice about it. There's no way I am letting any man near me for the next few years. I've been happily single for the past 4 years. I can wait another 4 years. I am so happy for women who have loving, supportive, safe men in their life right now, but it is way too scary to...
But if any of you are watching the stream, this person's not of particularly, he's not an exemplar of health. Not to say the person's unattractive. I'm just saying that she's not. It doesn't seem like a particularly healthy person. Not keeping herself in shape. Admits she was single the last 4 years anyway. But why, if you have the opportunity to forge a connection with someone and to have basic human needs satisfied, that you would deny that because you're bitter about an election? It feels like there's something going on, right? I mean, this isn't just about that Trump won. This is about a deep depression that takes place in these bubbled left-wing communities that have been told their whole lives that it is important for you to not have a family, to be subservient to the corporation, to be voracious consumers of consumer culture. And in this woman's case, obviously consuming a lot of food. Clearly, I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm saying that to be accurate. Your priorities are out of whack. You've not dialed in your priorities. And I'm fine with it. It's fine because it's a terrible example. There's no one watching this video who's not been brainwashed by whatever liberal bubble they're in and are feeling like, yeah, I want to be with this person. It sounds insane. It sounds completely insane.
To try and trust anyone right now because anything can happen. And if you know me, you know one of my biggest fears is being pregnant. God forbid that ever happens over the next few years. I'm f***ed. So, no dating apps. If you are a man, don't even look at me until, you know what? Ever again.
Ever again. Don't look at me ever again. It's such a curse that TikTok is out there and these people can be out there. I'm not trying to draw perfect attention to this one individual. There's so many like her, and it's sad in a way on a personal level, but on a greater level, it's like we don't want men to look at you. It's the best part in life is being able to fall in love and have a family. It just is. I have an amazing life, but the best part of my life is that I fell in love and had a family. Like that's it. I do so much cool stuff. You go to Mar-a-Lago, hang out with Trump. I got a kind of a low handicap on the golf course. Like I got lots of cool stuff to do. The best thing of my life is that I have a wife that I care about and love, and I have beautiful children. Like that's the best part. You can deny yourself that because Trump won. You're bitter. Obviously, that's not happening. What's happening is this person is self-loathing because she's been given no purpose and she's been lied to by the establishment media. And I would like to help these people. I'd like to get through to them. But they're getting talked to by some of the most divisive, angry, mean-spirited people on the planet. And this has been the conversation that's been going on cable news as they're trying to make heads or tails out of what's going on. Let me give you a sense of what's happening over on CNN right now.
I think there are a lot of families out there who don't believe boys should play girls' sports.
They're not boys. I'm not going to listen to transphobia at this table. I am not going to listen to you call a trans girl a boy.
Are you going to allow me to finish my explanation?
When you use a word that's a slur, I'm going to interrupt. That's not how it is. They're not boys. They're not boys. They're not playing girls' softball. I'm not going to sit there and listen to that.
Let's reset for a second because, look, this is a really heated issue, right?
Okay, so far, this is a conservative commentator named Michael Singleton, who goes on CNN, young guy. He happens to be a person of color, and he's talking to someone named Jay Michelson, who is an author. I think he's openly gay, and he cuts off. Michael makes a very polite, obvious point that a lot of families don't like it, this trans hoax that's going on, where we're insisting every third child is not the gender or sex that they were assigned at birth, which is a big hoax. It's anti-science. It's totally bogus, and it's all going to go away. It's all going to go away because the left is going to realize they can't win big elections with this viewpoint. And he cuts him off and says that we're not going to see this at the table. He's not going to accept this. I don't know if that is the right thing for the left to be doing right now. Referring it as transphobia to understand that after centuries, millennia of us believing that your chromosomes determined whether or not you're a man or a woman, now it is the way you feel when you wake up in the morning, that not everyone's going to go along with that. And people are seeing that as anti-truth, anti-science, and disruptive, not just to your communities, but to the family units in general. And it's the way the left is using it as a weapon to try to degrade the nuclear family. So it is something that is on CNN. This goes for commentary. I want you to see where the other panelists, where all the other panelists weigh in right now. Check this out.
Right. And Michael, I know you. I know that you understand that people have different views on this. I think out of respect for Jay, let's try to talk about this in a way that is respectful.
Okay, so let me rephrase this since I'm being targeted here.
I don't. You're not. Just to be clear, you are not being targeted.
But I am. But it's okay.
I'm specifically saying that I know that you.
Okay, so that's the host, Abby Phillip. She comes in and she takes the side of the guy who says it's transphobia to suggest basic, obvious science is transphobic. And then she comes in and says that Sharon Michaels being disrespectful of the other guy for what did he do to be disrespectful? And of course he's being targeted. Let's continue.
I know that you are not intending to be transphobic.
He should know that I'm not. But he wants to sit here and
calling you
bloviate.
transphobic.
But I
I'm
want
saying
you
you're
to.
using a phrase
I want to
that
give
you
you an
know.
opportunity.
So the way
to
regular
rephrase
people
it.
interpret it,
That's not
which is why
regular
those
people.
ads were.
Yes,
That's not
regular people.
There's no consensus that these are actually boys. This whole
No, there is consensus. It's with science. He goes on to list a bunch of academic journals that say that men can choose to be women and women can choose to be men whenever they want. Fine, keep doing it. Keep doing it, please. Keep doing it. You guys sound insane. And there's so many people, if you want to know why Donald Trump did well in so many of these new areas where nearly every county in the country, nearly every state moved towards Trump. If you want to know why, this is part of it. A lot of families don't dig this stuff. They don't dig the grocery prices, they don't dig the open border, and they don't dig the insistence that girls and boys can just change what their sex or gender identity on a dime. It's very confusing and frustrating for families, divides families. And it's happening to a lot more families than you think. So that's what's going on over at CNN, trying to piece it together. The trans stuff is going to be big because this is a real dividing line for a lot of people on the left. This is one that's gone viral on TikTok. This is a woman who is saying that she doesn't want to really interact with family. And there's a trans connection here. Check this out.
Well, it's happening. The family wants to know what I'm doing for the holidays. I'm going to be here with my dogs and my daughter, who is of childbearing age and now has to get an IUD at 17 years old. And I'm going to be here with my son, who is a political target. And that should really tell you all you need to know about why I'm not going to be hanging out with y'all for the holidays. So, fuck off. Choke on your turkey. Bye.
Choke on your turkey. F off. Middle finger. Cutesy mocking voice. But I say there's a trans connection because the handle on this person is trans loving mama. And yeah, I'm not trying to pick on all these individual people who are not out there that much, but with social media, you're out there, you're making these things. Trans loving mama. So I'm guessing she's got a trans kid and it's destroying her. And the trans kid should be aware of this, that your mama is freaking out and publicly humiliating herself. And it's because of the trans stuff in all likelihood. The kid should know that. The school should know it. Whoever encouraged whatever person is tormenting this woman with the trans stuff. But maybe it's her fault. Maybe she didn't get through the kids. We don't know, but you can explore all these ideas. That these people are angry. They're anti-science. We know they're anti-democracy. They got behind Kamala Harris, who was installed by 3 people to be the Democrat nominee. And they're lost. Completely lost. Over on MSNBC, things are not much better. Let's hear what's going on over there.
When you know someone voted that way, do you recommend, just from a psychological standpoint, being around them? We got the holidays coming up.
So I love that you asked this question because, there is a push, I think just a societal norm that if somebody is your family, that they are entitled to your time. And I think the answer.
Yeah, that's a Yale law professor suggesting that your family's not entitled to your time. Why do you need family for? They don't like the nuclear family. They don't like the idea of a Thanksgiving. They don't like the idea of people coming together and even talking stuff out. They probably don't like the idea of even giving their Trump-supporting family members a chance to reason with them and to explain why more people voted for Trump this time around. And allow them to explain how diversity and race isn't all that matters to us. Grocery prices matter more. No more foreign wars matter more. The open border matters more. The Tren de Aragua gangs taking over apartment buildings matter more to us. The fentanyl crisis matters more than race, gender, class, and now sexual orientation. So the left seems to be pretty rudderless. Producer Misty was pulling some clips for me of some Antifa rallies that were going on over the weekend in Chicago. I'm going to give you a taste of some of this footage. And again, if you can't see all this stuff, you can check out the YouTube, check out the Rumble. You can see the footage. But hear this. I'll just warn you, this is pretty mild.
What's your badge number? What's your badge number?
You want to hang out with these people? This is so lame. The people united will never be defeated. He won the popular vote, guys. Time to wake up. I've had a long-standing thing where I've complimented the left for having far superior call and response to us on the right. And I think we need to emulate some of these tactics. And you had to give it up for them a little bit, how quickly after 2016 that they organized and they got all these women march people out there with the pink hats. And, it was all a big joke. And I played all the clips about how from the insane rallies they had in terms of their ideas. Their ideas were terrible, but they were able to organize. There's 20 people outside in Chicago here. They all look very cold and they have nothing new to say. They can barely sustain a chant. It's a bad sign. And then you're on TikTok saying, don't hang out with your family. I'm not going to hang out with any guys. Won't get a boyfriend. This is just the most joyless people to come off of such a joyful campaign that Kamala ran to get to this point. All right, let's see. We got more protests. Here's a Chicago protest. Let's see what this is all about. They're at a Trump hotel. If you're seeing the footage, you're seeing a couple hundred people. Donald Trump, go away. That's not very good. Not great. It's just they don't have much, and that should be a relief to all of us. The editor of America's oldest magazine, Scientific American, faced calls to resign after issuing groveling apology for an anti-Trump rant. Laura Hillmuth is her name. Let me read you some of these tweets. I apologize to younger voters that my Gen X is so full of effing fascists. She did not use the letter. Solidarity to everybody whose meanest, dumbest, and most bigoted high school classmates are celebrating early results because F them to the moon and back. Every 4 years, I remember why I left Indiana, where I grew up, and remember why I respect the people who stayed and are trying to make it less racist and sexist. The moral arc of the universe isn't going to bend itself. Any advice for what workplaces can do to help people who are devastated by the election? Well, the first one, show some resilience, and the second one is work on yourself. But charming woman, and she's attacking all of Gen Z. She's attacking all of Trump's voters. This is my point about the garbage comment that Joe Biden made, that it revealed something like Hillary's basket of deplorables comment. It's not just that they disagree with us and that they have different policy, is that they hate us. They loathe us. They think we're full effing fascists. Jennifer Rubin, she's still at the Washington Post. I've tuned out on her recently. Yeah, Washington Post, MSNBC contributor, and mostly a Twitter hysteric. She tweets, it's 1933, Hitler is in power, no time for a effing seminar on Democrats' messaging errors. Okay, so where is her plane ticket out of the United States? Tweet us the ticket, Jen. Send it to us. If you believe that Hitler is literally in power and he's got the majority vote now, over 30 states, most of the people are voting for him, wins the popular vote, then you would leave the country, wouldn't you? You would leave. You wouldn't stay anymore because he's got the power. He's got the Senate, might get the House. If not, it's going to be right on the edge. I mean, you'd leave, but they don't believe any of this. And we got to remind them of this for the next 4 years, that if you're the type of person who said this is some sort of a fascist dictatorship that we're in right now, then it is time to get out. Time to get out. So it makes you angry, but it also is kind of fun. Here's one I can't resist. This is another sad one over on CNN. This is a pie in the sky idea. This is how they're licking their wounds.
Is looking for. That is my question. I'll start with you.
Joe Biden has been a phenomenal president. He's lived up to so many of the promises he's made. There's one promise left that he could fulfill, being a transitional figure. He could resign the presidency in the next 30 days. Make Kamala Harris the president of the United States.
Whoa.
It would absolve her from being able to from having to oversee the January 6th transition, right, of her own defeat, and it would make sure that it would dominate the news at a point where Democrats have to learn drama and transparency and doing things that the public want to see. Is the time. This is the moment for us to change the entire perspective of how Democrats.
Okay, this has now jumped from an internet meme to a Sunday morning show.
Jamal's out here right now.
Congratulations.
Season of House of Cards.
I thought you were going to say, what about the Supreme Court? That's also out there.
Well, the Supreme Court might happen. I don't know if it will, but I think this is something that's.
Oh, man, Supreme Court might happen. I mean, this is a former Harris vice president of communications, I guess. And they're just licking their wounds. Could they make her, even though she wasn't elected, could they make her the first? Well, I guess she's elected vice president. Could Biden resign, make her the president for a few weeks? Why? Why do that? Cheapens it. Cheapens the presidency. They've cheapened what it means, the presidency in general. I will end on something, though, before I start taking some of your comments at aloha@alexmarlow.com, which is our victory is contracting a little bit. And I want to say this, not to throw a cold blanket or wet blanket on all the fun that we're having. But it's becoming clear to me that despite Donald Trump's dominance in the Electoral College, we could be more ambitious. I believe that the Republicans, Rasmussen had said that we called the Trump result a Republican stalled down ticket. Republicans lost a lot of very close races in the Senate and now in the House. It looks like a lot of really important races that I've been keeping my eye on as more mail-in vote comes in, as is often the case, is going for Democrats. And so the Republicans, I think, are going to end up at 53 Senate seats, very good, and maybe a seat or two more than we would have guessed going into election night. But that number could have easily been in the 55, 56 range with just a couple of thousand votes here and there. And there's a phenomenon that happened that's occurred where I think that in the early days of Trumpism, that people were unfamiliar with his brand of smash mouth politics. And he may have actually been underperforming his slate of issues. Now, after the assassination attempts, after the country became completely fed up with the establishment media, with the rise of the podcast, meme, online culture, that now I think actually Trump's personality is bringing additional people to his side who might not necessarily be Republican and be compelled to vote Republican. So we're getting just enough split ticket voting that is going to make it so that the Senate is going to be up for grabs in 2026, which almost wasn't the case. And the House, again, it won't be a dominant performance from the Republicans. And recall that we all thought a blue wave was coming in 2022. And it didn't happen. So this is a reminder that now is not the time to be too celebratory. It's the time to work. And that's why I launched the Alex Marlow Show the day after the election, because I want to send a signal that my viewpoint is that it's time to have fun. It's time to do a dance on their faces, all that stuff. That's all fun. It's all great. But it is time to work. We got to get back in our woodshed and we got to be sharpening our skills because we got a 2-year window here to get a lot done. And we need to continue to convince hearts and minds because Donald Trump cannot do it alone. He's proven that because so many of these tight races are not going the way we need to. So let's continue to be aggressive. Let's continue to be ambitious and continue to try to hone that persuasion. We need that persuasion. It's a huge part of what we want to do and what I'm going to try to bring to you on the show. Tons and tons of great email, people emailing me at aloha@alexmarlow.com and people also leaving comments on YouTube and Rumble, etc., and also on iTunes. All of those really help engagement. It helps boost the content. It helps get the show in front of more people. So I appreciate that. And I'm going to try to read some of them on the show and react to some of them. All right, Tom in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Hi, Alex. Just so you know which slice of demographic pie I'm coming from. I'm a 91-year-old Korean War veteran. Happy Veterans Day to you. Who has been blessed to be part of a generation when both political parties were patriotic and loved our nation unequivocally. I was concerned that if Trump didn't win, the Demo-rats would succeed in changing the demographics to the point the Republicans would never win again. By the grace of God, that may never happen now, but the Republicans must enact legislation that blocks the ability for Dems to rig elections. By that, I mean voter ID, signature verification, ballot harvesting, etc. Thank you for your great instincts and your influence for good in the evil culture. You are so right that the left must be utterly defeated, and they will continue their match to destroy this democracy. All great points so far. My greatest fear almost came true in July in Butler, Pennsylvania. Here again, only by the grace of God, it didn't happen. But the enemies, both domestic and foreign, will continue to try to assassinate him. Do you think that Trump will have sufficient protection to prevent this? Maybe you can discuss this in a future episode. I think that is the only thing that could prevent Trump from implementing his agenda. Beautifully written. Beautifully written. Thank you so much, Tom. Means a lot, especially on Veterans Day. And I'll react to the last part. I am worried, of course. I was worried they were going to kill Trump after he won in 2016. I thought there's a very high likelihood they would have killed him between 2016 election day and inauguration. And of course, they're going to keep trying to kill him now. I am more optimistic that given that he is the president, that he won the Democratic vote, that he won the popular vote even, that he will have even increased protection. I'm sure it's even more serious than as president than it would have been as a candidate or as a former president. All of that is positive to me, and I'm very pleased that it is J.D. Vance as vice president and not Nikki Haley. Not only because if Trump were to get assassinated, we'd have a better president, but it's better because I do think that is a bigger deterrent for people, because assassinating Trump makes him an even bigger martyr than he already is. And then you get a 40-year-old guy who's completely internalized Trump's vision for America, and he would be the president. So all that's good. I continue to feel like the presidency is an extremely dangerous job, and they absolutely want to kill Trump. And they will maybe give it a try. They might try to do that. All right, Alex, this was a comment on Rumble, I think. It was a little dyslexic when you noted Starr County flipping Republican for the first time since 1986. It was actually 1896. This is true. I made a mistake. We have a correction on the show, and I will take myself to our chastisement facilities later in the day. I said 1986. I meant 1896. I read it backwards, and it absolutely killed me when this point was brought to my attention, but I'm still grateful. So thank you for bringing it to my attention. All right, Alex, this is from Mark Yanta, MD. Oh, we get a lot of doctors on the show. We got a highly sophisticated audience here. Alex, I was so happy to see that you've started your podcast. I look forward to tuning in again every day if possible. I really missed hearing you on Patriot every morning. You have a unique ability to keep the show moving, add a little bit of humor, and call a spade without being insulting. That's what I try to do. It was always obvious that you put in a lot of time and effort into preparation in your morning show, and I'm glad you're back on the airwaves. Thank you. All true. I do have a question for you. Being that it is nearly de rigueur that the president's party loses spots for the midterm, and the calendar in 2026 will be significantly less favorable for Republicans in the Senate, I do have concern that the Trump administration might overreach and the backlash will be significant. Do you see areas where this is a concern to you, or do you feel my concerns are overblown? He goes on from there and he has great comments, but I want to make sure that I get to this point. I'm absolutely not concerned about overreach. I would love, for once in my life, for Republicans to overreach. I've never seen it. I, of course, didn't see it during the Bush years, and I did not see it during the first Trump administration. Trump never overreached. He occasionally had some overblown rhetoric, though way less often than people say. But in terms of his policies, I think Trump didn't go nearly far enough in nearly every single thing that he did. And he only proved me wrong, I think, in one example I can think of, but that's going to be a big can of worms I'm not going to open up now. But for the most part, I would love to see him try to overreach and see what happens, and let the chips fall where they may in that regard, because one man's overreach might be this man's perfection. And if that's the case, I am convinced that Trump's policies will win people over if he unleashes a massive economic boom, restores law and order, keeps the world a much safer place the way he did in his first 4 years. So I would love to see him try. And Mark, if I'm wrong about this, please email me and do a victory lap in the next couple years. All right, that's going to be today's show over at the Breitbart Fight Club today. That's our premium package. I do an in-depth interview with John Carney on the economy. It's incredible. I also recommend that you go over there for our premium content and an ad-free experience at Breitbart News. And as always, sharing this content wherever you prefer to get your podcasts helps us grow. And the faster we grow, the faster we can expand, et cetera, et cetera. It means a lot to me. Thank you to producer Misty, the Salem Media Network, Breitbart News, and all of you in this terrific audience for telling 10,000 friends and family members about the show. And we'll talk to you tomorrow.